I'm going to be reading from my new novel, Sand Queen, that just came out. And all you need to know about it ahead of time is that it's based on interviews I did with some 40 women who served in Iraq in all branches of the military. And some interviews I also did with Iraqi refugees. Put together this story about an American soldier and an Iraqi woman who meet at a checkpoint, prison checkpoint, in Iraq at the beginning of the war. I'm going to skip kind of into the middle of the book. The book is written in two voices. One is that of Kate, the young soldier from upstate New York, rural upstate, and the other is Naima, the Iraqi woman from Baghdad, who's a medical student and whose father is a professor and mother a doctor, and they had to flee Baghdad after shock and awe started the war. The bombing and the following looting drove them out of the city because it was so dangerous. So I'll read from the voice of Kate first. This is she comes back to her tent after a shift of guarding the checkpoint. I lie on my fart sack, the sleeping bag I use for a mattress, my arm over my eyes, just trying to breathe. The tent is always hot and dusty inside because we have no floor but sand and no air conditioning but tent flaps. It's overcrowded too, with 18 green cots lined up on each side and our crap stuffed into every available space in between. Duffel bags and dirty underwear, helmets and rifles, boots and socks and backpacks. Even the tent poles are cluttered, fading photos of girlfriends and wives, good luck rabbit feet and key rings, or in my case, Fuzzy the spider and my crucifix. And then, of course, there are the men. The tent reeks of them. Sweat and farts, beard and balls. Hey, Freckles! I lift my arm off my eyes, relieved to see another female at last. Third Eye walks over to me, in her brown t-shirt and camo pants, looking as sand-crusted and exhausted as the rest of us, and parks her big self on her rack right beside me. She's 6 foot tall, with a round red face like a Russian's, short dark hair and squinty black eyes, and she's built like a bulldozer. She could scoop up most of the guys in my platoon and fold them up like a handkerchief. You eaten yet? She says. Nope. I figured. Eat this, come on, you're shrinking to nothing out here. She hands me an MRE, meal ready to eat, that is. MREs come in these brown plastic sacks, and inside there's a main course of cardboard disguised to look like greasy meat, along with a bunch of artery-clogging junk food and a chemical pouch for heating the mess up without fire, which probably tastes better than the stuff it's supposed to cook. The MREs are famous for clogging up your guts like plaster. We call them meals refusing to exit. They only fill you up for about 10 minutes. But they're all we have to eat, along with our equally disgusting tea rations, because neither the fucking army nor its fat cat contractor, KBR Halliburton, has gotten around to building us a chow hall yet. I sit up and tear the packet open, pick out a cold ball of grease and force myself to take a bite. Third Eye, meanwhile, is wolfing down a solid cube of spaghetti and red sauce like it's Mama's home cooking. Third Eye got that name because of this nasty black bump that appeared one day in the middle of her forehead. It's gone now, but it was quite a humdinger there for a while. We all thought it was a zit at first, a bad one, but then it grew grotesquely huge and turned into a golf ball with a black dot in the middle of it. She had to have it operated on. Apparently, some bug had laid its eggs and was raising a nice little family in there. Hey, she says, pointing to the spider on my tent pole. What the fuck is that? I glance up at its hairy legs. That's Fuzzy. He's a present for Mack Truck. She chuckles and shakes her head. After I force down a couple more grease balls, I pull out the snapshot that Iraqi girl gave me and hand it to Third Eye. You ever seen either of these guys? Third Eye guards the prison tent, so she sees more of the detainees than I do. She glances at it. How would I know? They all look the same to me. Where'd you get this? I tell her about my deal. Will you keep an eye out for them? This girl's English is amazing. She could be a real help. if you want. Third Eye shrugs and hands the photo back. She slides her eyes over to Rickman and DJ, who are listening to our every word as usual. Let's go, I need to get washed. We pick up our rifles and go out together, doing our battle buddy thing. When we first landed in Kuwait, the command told us that no females could walk to the latrines or anywhere else at night without another female as a battle buddy. And the same rule applies here at Camp Buka. That's so we can protect each other from getting raped by one of our own fine comrades. The walk to the latrines is pretty far because we built them out near the berm. This big sand dune we bulldozed up around the perimeter of the camp as a security wall. Doesn't anybody in the army remember what Jesus said about building a house on sand? And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Security wall, my ass. So what's up, glum-face? God pissing your Cheerios again? Third Eye says as we make our way through the dark. The only light is from the moon. We can't use flashlights because that would make us a target for mortars. It's Sergeant Cormack. He was in a shitty mood today. Oh, come on, he's not so bad. Are you kidding? He picked on me all day. Third Eye grunts. You must have pissed him off then. What did you do? I didn't do anything. Sure you did. Come on, Freckles. When are you going to learn to play along, huh? That's what he wants. Then he'll lay off with you. I look up at her face, but I can't see it in the dark, especially under her helmet. What do you mean, play along? You know. Listen, you made your choice. You've got to be a bitch or a slut around here. Everybody knows that. And since you won't be a bitch with that sunny little Christian act of yours, you've only got one choice left. That's why the men chase you so bad. They'll want to get in your pants, Sergeant Movie Star included. But you won't put out, so they're pissed. So you're saying I have to sleep with him? Fuck you! Not that I think you're right about that anyhow. No. I'm saying you got to make your signals clear, kiddo. If you don't want to put out, then you need to get a whole lot meaner. Like you? Yeah, baby, like me. So now I'm going to skip a little bit about Naima. And Naima has moved in with her grandmother in the south, and she fled Baghdad, as I mentioned. The grandmother was quite elderly. And when I should have mentioned this before, but the American soldiers burst into their house early on in the novel and arrest the father and little brother. And after that shock, the grandmother declines quite rapidly to the point where they need to take her to hospital. And so they're driving to the nearby port town of Khazar, which has the only working hospital in the whole area at this point in the war. For nearly 3 hours, Mama, Granny and I sit in the traffic jam in Khazar, and still nobody can move. Rather, it grows worse, for more people keep arriving, pressing frantically towards the hospital. Everywhere, panicked faces, everywhere, wounds and illness, everywhere, cars and people pushing and shoving, yet we remain trapped. An old man hobbles up and thrusts an anguished face into our car window. Water! Sisters, please, do you have water? He begs in a tremulous voice. I need water for my wounded grandson, please. I have no water, grandfather. I'm sorry, I say, kicking our extra bottle under my seat with one foot. My callousness shames me, but I have to keep Granny alive. Groaning, the man moves on to the next car while I look in horror at the scenes around me. How have my people been driven to this? What has become of my country? Naima, look, something's wrong, Mama cries at that moment. We must leave the car now. I turn around quickly. Granny's emaciated face is stretched in new pain, her toothless mouth gasping. Clearly, her vital signs are failing. She needs oxygen and rehydration, and she needs them both now. I jump out of the car, and Mama and I lift her up. Making a chair with our arms, we rush into the crowd with her. The car we abandon to its fate. Granny moans as we move her, her breath rattling, her murky eyes rolling in fear and confusion. We press ever harder through the mass of people around us, ruthlessly pushing the small and old out of our way, while we pass more and more, wounded and sick. A baby with her leg dangling and oozing shreds. A man with a flayed face, flies buzzing hungrily over the wounds. And when we have finally struggled all the way to the hospital entrance, we force ourselves desperately through the door, surrounded by others equally forceful, equally desperate. But here it is no better. The hospital corridors are swarming with people. A few blood-splattered nurses are trying to restore order, but the place is more like an overcrowded refugee camp than a house of rest and healing. And it is filthy. Beside us stands a sink full of bloody test tubes waiting to be washed. A tiny child lies alone and screaming on a urine-stained gurney, its face and body so blistered with burns I cannot tell its sex. A boy is carried past with a metal shard impaled in his skull, his eyes rolling in agony. In one corner, a cluster of people is drinking out of an oil drum, but when I draw near, I see that the water is covered with slimy grey scum. What's going on here? I call to a woman beside me. The hospital's had no water for 3 days, she replies, raising her voice above the din. There is only one doctor. Thousands of people have come for help, but there isn't any help. Where are the British doctors? What British doctors? There's nobody here, I tell you. Oh, Allah, Mama wails when she hears this. What's to become of my mother? I look about me, wondering if they have put together a triage team in this hellish place. It is hard to admit, but were I in charge, I would tend to these wounded children first, not to an old woman so near her time. Granny, I whisper in her ear, forgive me, but I must do this. To Mama I say, let's carry her over to that corner. You wait with her there. I'm going to help. My medical training is too precious to waste here. Mama agrees, and I see in her eyes the same knowledge I have. We have gone to all this effort only to bring Granny Marianne to her death.